of this. And what I see is the overview. We meet monthly to discuss relevant topics that are based on the idea of using music to promote more unity and purpose for older adults. And of course, that kind of concept is really helpful for quality of life and just generally creating a better day for everyone, and maybe the ability to maintain a higher level of function and health through the use of music and all the connection and everything that music brings. And my thoughts were that this is a method of sort of bringing all of us together with the ideas of what people are already doing, and coming up with ideas of maybe some programs that we can create, and devise some methods to spread the word more efficiently and facilitated, because I find it very challenging to get the word out there and really have people adopt, and and that brings up a myriad of issues to discuss. And so I thought that at least to get started, some discussion points would be music resources that are easily accessible and how we could promote their use, off the top, like different music streaming services, YouTube, all those kinds of things. And then, methods and formats that are currently being used by older adults to access the music. And then also the accessibility of Wi-Fi for older adults aging in place, which definitely is a challenge that I run up against. And in working with Comfort Care Home Care, with all of our different franchise owners that are out there, one of the things that I hear frequently is the inaccessibility of internet, the lack of Wi-Fi that's out there. So, maybe through coming together, perhaps we can come up with some creative ideas for making that more accessible to people. So those are just some points. So, as far as what I do in terms of promoting music, I do a live stream program on Facebook. And I do that Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And it's a program called Tune In Today. And so one of the things, the goals with that, and I've worked a lot over the years through my work is with people with dementia primarily, although, it spans to everyone. And, I've found that there are certain songs, that bring up the memories. It's a great tool for reminiscence, a great method for singing along. And I use it to sort of remind people of that and talk about some of my reminiscence and things of that nature. So that's one of the things that I do. I also have music out there which is designed for older adults on the streaming music app SoundCloud, and that's out there. So those are some of the things that I do, and I try to talk about music with as many groups as I can. So, those are some ways that I'm spreading what I'm doing. And really, I thought that this is a great opportunity to get other people together and sort of find out what they're doing and maybe collaborate on different ways that we can do more together. So I'll just open it up if anybody wants to sort of chime in and come up with, how you're using music.
Well, in my position, I certainly encourage it with family members if the person is, the family, the loved one is at home, and have also talked to a facility about it, and you try and find out what their favorite music is, right? And it's usually from their late teens, early 20s. That's kind of what we carry with us through life. I know I have. Anyway, but when I worked inpatient, it's been 2 years on the senior behavioral health unit, I actually marketed, but I spent a lot of time helping. For a short time, we had a music therapist, and it was wonderful because she led a lot of groups, but she also did a lot of individual work with the individual patients. And as we all know, it touches everybody. Music still touches everybody, no matter how advanced their dementia is. And it's so calming for them. You know, it's such a nice alternative to always having to use medications.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So do you find that, the communities that you're involved in, are they, I mean, they're open to probably, programs, people coming in, but what about like just getting the individual preferences? How do they, do they think about that at all?
I don't think enough. Everybody is so short-staffed these days, and they're just trying to keep them clean and fed, and so yeah, and I've sat in, like, I have one client that I see in a facility, and I've been there for lunch. I go during activities to see how she's responding, and what they're doing with the residents. And I have not seen music I'm not saying it's not done, but I haven't seen it when I've been there.
Hmm.
They might put on like a video. I know one time there was a video about Frank Sinatra, so some of his singing. But I have to tell you, if you weren't a Frankie lover, they weren't paying attention.
Hmm. Yeah. And
So,
one of the things that I hear all the time too is, like that, the community may have Wi-Fi in the main area, but then when you get into the different residence rooms, that it's sort of up to that individual.
mhm,
And I know, like, if I think about where I live here in North Carolina, it's it's an apartment complex that has Wi-Fi for the whole community. And, as part of the rent, like, I pay for internet, but it makes it so much more efficient. And what has always just, I can't understand why some of these communities don't have something similar to that. And if they don't, maybe there are some methods or ideas that we could come up with to sort of promote that. I don't know if it's partnering with local internet providers, or exactly what it is, or coming up with a whole program, because I do believe that with all the talent and everything that's out there, that putting together, and there's people who are doing streaming services now, and one of the members, Anthony Cirillo, who I spoke with, he's got a whole streaming platform, but it's just getting it out there to people,
right,
so.
and right, getting them to buy into it. And there's plenty of young people working in these facilities, so I know they know how to tap into streaming and YouTube and everything. But again, it's getting them to make that a part of their day with the residents.
Yeah, yeah. Gina, what do you find as being a challenge that way?
Oh,
You're
muted.
muted. You're muted.
Yeah,
There you go.
can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm a care manager, and prior to being care manager, I was a social worker also in an acute setting and in a nursing home setting and so forth. And so first and foremost, one of the reasons why I'm attending today was I was going to be attending with a dear friend who is a music educator. And she's been teaching students for a really long time. And since having her mom in the nursing home, she has found such great value in the power of music with her mom. and mostly as it's done live with the grandchildren who are adults, singing "You Are My Sunshine," playing it on a wind instrument or with a guitar, having that human interaction. I see the greatest benefit while Wi-Fi and having music played overhead or on a device is really valuable. Having that human live interaction seems to be even better. And I know we're in a world where we really can't take advantage of that, but I do visit an adult home. An adult home is where you're allowed to have up to 6 people.
Mhm.
And it's a really well-run adult home. There's several nurses on staff. So like the staff to patient or resident ratio is 2 to 1 at least. But every other week they have someone come in and play the guitar. And, you know, once in a while I happen to be there, and it's just amazing. People can't remember the day of the week. They can't remember, you know, myself, obviously, but they know every word to, you know, Bye Bye Miss American Pie, you know, that song. And, you know, and everybody is clapping and singing. And then the other piece is when I was in the acute care part of the hospital many years ago, a wonderful woman came in and she had a portable harp, and portable, it was still a pretty large harp.
Yeah.
And she just came and she played outside the intensive care unit. So, but I saw an amazing change in just the overall level of stress, not only for the people that were the residents or patients, but us in taking care of them. You know, we immediately, myself especially, like when someone said the harpist is here, I'm like, oh, I think I have to go do a patient note. And it was really, really powerful. So to have it be live and in person, I think is really invaluable. And then to speak for my friend who couldn't be here today because she's trying to get those children ready for a holiday concert. She really wants to go into music therapy. So she has her degree in music education. And she wondered, you know, as she moves forward, should she go into music therapy? And is there any, you know, guidance to be offered?
Yeah. And that's a good question. How effective can she be without it? Or, I mean, there's many ways to look at that, and really what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. But, you know, in hearing you talk about the live aspect, certainly the live element is much better. One of the things that I've done and did this with the idea of, you know, I used to go around to, you know, communities, assisted livings, nursing homes, everything. And it was always, I loved doing it, but I could maybe do 3 in a day. And that was a lot, you know, and so, and of course in one area, one region. So, you know, when I started working with comfort care, home care, the idea was, you know, how could you possibly scale something that would simulate live, you know, without being there, kind of thing. So the idea was, and this is a program that I created called Joyful Memories. And so the concept was that I recorded music. I recorded the songs, simple recording of just the guitar and singing. And that you know, someone could take it in, the franchise owner or someone who's designated could go into that community, that setting, and play those as like backing tracks, and then sing along and encourage people to sing. You know, if the person could play an instrument, that's fine, but in most cases, they couldn't, or they didn't know the songs, or whatever it was. So this way they could lead that and get that live engagement of the person being there and leading and going around and being able to engage one-on-one with people and get them more involved.
That's really nice.
And yeah, and it really does work. Of course, some people are more natural facilitators than others, but in one particular case, and this was early on in the program, one of our franchise owners in Florida basically built all their contacts and business around doing this. So they scheduled these things, and he's a very outgoing guy. And he was doing 40 of these programs, 40 a month, or I don't know, a lot. He was doing a lot of them. And then, so, if that idea could like sort of snowball and different places could have it and have access. So, I've created a lot of tracks that could be used for that. And it's basically, at this point, it's open source. You know what I mean? It's not, anybody could use them, and they're old songs. But and of course, as you mentioned "Bye Bye Miss American Pie," and that's like a new song. But of course, the library of the music will change as we go through time here. But that was one idea, to be able to sort of, it's sort of hybrid in a way. There's some recorded music, but the person's there live. And, the other thing that I was thinking about, and you're talking about your friend who's the music educator, and one of the things I've been working on here with a high school choir director, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, that I'm calling the care choir, which is like young people who get together. It's an intergenerational type program. Young people and older people, even some people with dementia, getting together and forming a choir. So in thinking of what your friend could do without having to be a music therapist, just what she knows and what she does, is bringing kids together in those kinds of settings with older adults, and then, maybe forming like a care choir, and then going around to different places in the community, at senior centers, community centers. And I do think that also, something like that could potentially get a lot of good press locally and maybe nationally too. But, sort of that idea of spreading that word, and that intergenerational component, I think, is so powerful, because the older people, and this in communities, nursing homes, they love when younger people come in. And the energy is very high. And if you've seen the movie Alive Inside, have you seen that film? Okay, you've got to see it. It's called Alive Inside. It came out now. It's got to be 10 or 11 years ago. And I've been working with the filmmaker Michael Rosado Bennett lately we're working on the idea of putting something more together. But I met him through doing a lot of screenings of the film. About 4 or 5 years ago, I did a year of traveling around doing film screenings of this film, and putting together a panel of experts about music, and dementia, because it gets into all that, but it shows the power at the end of the film. It shows the power of when young people get turned on to the idea, and they see the older people respond, and they're seeing a little clip of it went on YouTube, and that just went viral. And everybody, they were just so enthralled. And I know that when I've done some intergenerational programs and get some young people involved to volunteer, and they're always just so wonderful with the older people. We did it recently. I, with a few of my colleagues, we put together a program where we like buddied up a younger person and an older person via Zoom, and it had its challenges. But we met together. We had some like sort of discussion points as a group, and then went into individual rooms with a pair, like an older person, a younger person, to talk a little bit more about those sort of life concepts, from the older person's perspective, the younger person's perspective. And it was very, very powerful, so and it wasn't just about music, although we did, that was very effective. We would play a song and then people would discuss it, so there's all kinds of things like that could be done. So I guess the point too is that has nothing to do with music therapy. You know what I mean, per se, like in the academic sense of it. So there are many things that someone can do without having to be a music therapist, So, I mean, and I'd be happy to talk to your friend about that too, So those are just.
I do have to ask, did any of you watch that 60 Minutes special about Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga for the last performance? And then
Oh yeah,
I had to wait like, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks before they actually played the performance on TV. And we knew from watching the 60 Minutes special that the very next day he didn't even remember it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, I cried through the whole thing.
And I mean, and he was so on the performance.
Yes, you would put her name, everything.
Yeah, and she is just so wonderful. I mean, she just is the greatest thing, And the way they work together, and so that is that. Everybody should see that, because that shows the power of it,
But his performing, don't forget, is also an old memory. It's the short term that goes first.
That's right.
It takes a lot longer for the long term. And so he was doing it for how many decades? And
right.
So it makes sense that once he starts, he's got it and he's right there.
But the interesting thing too is that it helped the short term as well. I mean, and I've seen many times where someone is totally out of it, and then it's a song that triggers memory, and then they start telling a story. I mean, I it's amazing the stories I've heard from someone who was completely despondent.
Right.
And then they hear that song, they start singing it, and then all of a sudden you hear a great story.
Right. I mean, people that haven't spoken in, a couple of years, and then you hit the right song and they're singing the song with the person singing. And I mean, it's phenomenal. Yeah,
it really is. So, I think there's many things that are sort of untapped yet. I know when I first started going into communities and doing music a little over 25 years ago, people didn't know anything. And now lots of people, they understand it. So it's taken a long time for people to understand it. And now to get some of these programs out there and get it more into the mainstream is really the goal, I think, at this point. I think also in talking about live, like getting maybe, you mentioned somebody goes to the care home, and maybe getting a larger volunteer network set up of musicians who do these kinds of things. And there are a couple of organizations that do something right now. but maybe tapping in more and maybe creating an alliance with an organization like that, or something like that nature, to where there would be, like in an area, like a certain number of people who volunteered, who maybe it's through an app or something, I don't know, that could link up places that could, utilize someone's, who, especially care homes, like you're saying, which is like six people. They're the ones who really, I mean, you can't really necessarily afford to hire a musician,
Right.
but there are probably plenty of people out there who would like to do something like that on a regular basis, maybe.
I think tapping in, like you were saying with the young people, a lot of the schools, the kids are required to get so many service hours. And
Yeah.
it's a great way to get those service hours. I know when I worked the inpatient unit, I had my alma mater's a cappella choir come to sing with the patients on our floor. Oh my God, it was wonderful. And, the way the patients would get right into it and be singing along, and the kids loved it. And so, but it's not just at Christmas time.
Right.
We need to do this all the time, all
Right.
year round.
Yeah.
When we're allowed to get into these places. Right now, we're taking a step back
Right.
because we're not so able to get into these places.
Right. With the pandemic, it certainly has put the kibosh on so much, hasn't it?
It really has, especially too, just, when I used to work in the nursing home, at not just at Christmas, but even at Halloween or Easter, we would have, if we had little children, and I had a toddler at the time, just bringing him through, with other kids. There was one woman who all she did was pace all day long, and she had word salad. So that's what she did. She constantly had stream of consciousness and word salad. And back in those days, I'm older than I look. Back in those days, you could use Dutch doors, and they weren't illegal according to the state of New York. So sometimes we had to have her in, she was so busy, we would have to have her in her room. Well, I remember when I brought my son in I think it was Easter. So they had baskets, and, the residents could put things in the basket. Well, she reached over her Dutch door and picked up my son, and I took a deep breath for a second. But in that moment, I mean, I was still to this day, and my son is 21 now. So she picked him up and she put him on her shoulder, and she rocked, and she said, "Oh, what a sweet boy. Aren't you just a sweet boy?" And I'm thinking, this is not word salad. She's totally
Yeah.
in the moment. And to have that human connection, and I bet you she was thinking of when she was raising her own child or children. And my husband looked at me, and I'm like, we can just go with it. But there's the Dutch door. I didn't know she was going to take him in the room and take him. But it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And what an impact children have on older adults, and also music, of course. Combine those two, and I think you have magic,
Yeah. And that's one of those long-term memories.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with understanding how to handle a baby. And there was I was looking for the link, and I can't find it right now. I'll have to try to find it, but there's a video of a care home in Australia, and the guy who runs this care home, it's just amazing what they do. But one of the things, they bring kids in, and they sort of allow what you're talking about, the people with dementia, just, holding the babies. And his whole concept is that people can do whatever they want to do. You know what I mean? In other words, if they think they can do it, and they had one guy who wanted to skydive. And so the doctor cleared him medically, and he went and they took him skydiving, so, that was an extreme example, but they showed people doing all sorts of things, and that, and that's because, and the whole idea is like, why, like, like you have to find the why to be alive. Like, if you're just going to sit there and think you can't do anything, then what's the point? So that's
Centered care approach, or the Eden model,
mhm.
really, or it's at, I don't know, he must have verbalized he wanted to skydive. Did he verbalize?
Oh yeah, yeah. He said that he wanted to, and he was in shape. And of course, a lot of people with Alzheimer's disease are in perfectly fine physical condition. And this was Australia, so it's probably a little bit different. Maybe it's looser. I don't know, but that was the most extreme example. That, of course, they had other examples that weren't so extreme of what people were doing and could continue to do. But I think, and that's one of the things really too about to loop it back into music, is that I think the music is a great way of reminding ourselves and of what we are still can feel, because music is all about conveying emotion, communicating emotion, and that it puts us in touch with all those things. I think that's so important, and that's one of the reasons why it's so powerful.
I hate to interrupt, but I need to call a client. Kind of an emergency has come up, but great discussion.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and we're going to do this monthly, so I hope you'll come back again, and hopefully we have some more people and develop some good ideas and move forward on some things. Thanks,
Have a
Marty.
nice holiday.
You too.
So just listening to your discussion, I think there would be a great project for NAIPC in the future is to create a care choir. I love that idea of the intergenerational. And if we could find one of these, I don't know if you all have them in your area, but we have like the School of Rock where the kids go and learn and put on concerts. And if we could form some kind of partnership with like a school like that, I think we could do great things.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing, and it's a great goal, and I think it's really doable, because I think that a lot of the younger people, especially if they're into music or theater or all kinds of things, are really open to wanting to do that. And the other thing is, there's lots of people, older people, who are also musicians, and people from the theater, from Broadway, from the entertainment industry, who probably would love to do things. I remember years ago, I went to this community, and this was kind of like a door-to-door thing. I was in the hallway with my guitar, and I sort of sing some songs, and then poke my head into somebody's room, see if they wanted. And this whole floor was all these old retired musicians. I had no idea. Yeah, and a lot of them were like old blues musicians, and it was the greatest thing.
You hit the jackpot.
I did, yeah, and it was, and they probably did that they didn't tell me in advance, but it was really amazing, and I know. Here in North Carolina, there's an organization that does some things with older retired musicians to go out and do like gigs and things like that. So there's probably tons of people in music, or just people who love music, who would want to be involved in something like that. Yeah, so that's something we can work toward. That's great. Yeah.
Awesome. I've been writing down notes as we go. I also like your whole like karaoke to go. That's kind of like with your
Yeah.
recording and like programs to go, and here's your songs and here's your presentation, and maybe we can create something like that too.
I think so. Yeah. And, also like in a lot of like independent living communities where they have like a community room and they do events where people really are, I mean, they're living in their individual places, but they, that might be a great place for something like that too, as an event, getting some of these communities on board. It doesn't have to be like an assisted living or a nursing home, just a senior apartments or anything like that, where they do events.
I think there are lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
sure. I mean, I guess we're good for today.
Yeah, this has been a great first meeting. We were small, but great discussion.
Yeah.
See some opportunities for NAIPC, like the chapters, to maybe sponsor, things like this, and things like maybe a karaoke to go, or the joyful memories, the care choir.
Yeah.
Something to get us in, so that NAIPC is recognized for doing, invigorating activities with.
Yeah.
Not that we don't, but.
And I think like if we put together like a toolkit kind of thing, that would be really a good goal to work toward,
I like that.
Steve, what do we do about people who are hard of hearing? And do you adjust things in terms of tone and pitch?
Well, I mean, you can, I guess the simplest way is to say like a headset. There are some, and there's a company, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a company that makes these headsets, and a lot of communities are starting to use these now, where the same streaming content goes to all those headsets. So you could theoretically adjust it. If someone is hard of hearing, it wouldn't maybe have to go to everyone, but that person could have a headset or something that could be adjusted at a higher volume. So that's one way of thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe like those silent disco parties. Have you seen those where
Right.
everyone wears the helmet
And
and
that's
everyone's
the
dancing, but it's quiet?
right. And that's the kind of the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
We could do that at the senior
And
center.
in fact, my friend Michael Bennett, who's the filmmaker, he I think got that company to donate all these headsets. I'll have to ask him about it because he would be interested in this. So I'll talk to him too.
Oh, that would be fun. I've been talking with Deanne, who's the head of our Southern Nevada chapter. We've been wanting to do a flash mob of seniors on Fremont Street. So that would be fun if we could somehow incorporate it all together.
Yeah.
Maybe for Aging in Place Week. That would
Absolutely.
be fun.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So just to kind of end things, if we did want to, we're on live on Facebook, so I don't know who else is watching our discussion, but if someone did want to get a hold of you to listen to your Joy from Memories or your daily activities, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, I'd be happy to share my email address here.
And your podcast is daily, correct?
And yeah, and that's on the Comfort Care corporate Facebook page.
Is it Comfort Care or Comfort Care?
COMFORCARE. And it's called Tune In Today. So you probably could find it by Tune In Today.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for this
Oh,
great
my
idea
pleasure.
of starting this group. And I know our first discussion about music therapy was great, and this one was also fantastic. So
Excellent.
Thank you for your
Well,
time.
Sure, I look forward to next time. And
Yes.
and Gina, feel free to give your friend my email address. I'd be happy to speak with her.
I will do that. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
All right.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
See you guys. Bye.